In India, the food, the cuisine, the people, the clothes, and the attitude changes every 200 kilometers. Actually, it was the BBMP. They had a item in their budget called fiduciary funds for improving pedestrian areas. And the word fiduciary, many people don't know. It means to hold in trust for a specific purpose. It's a grant. Bangalore has the worst ratio of private vehicles to population in the entire planet. It's 1.3 crore people and 1.3 crore vehicles, 1:1. You should ask the fundamental question, why are there cobblestones in modern streets in the first place? As you move from Brigade Road to Church Street, the footpath keeps widening and it becomes pedestrian oriented. And I think architecture and fashion share a lot, whether it's proportion or whether it's texture or it's structure or rhythm, and most importantly, restraint.
Hi, I'm Prasad Bidapa. Welcome to the Aldeno podcast. And this time around, our very first guest is Naresh Narasimhan from Venkatramanan and Associates, which is one of Bengaluru's leading architectural and civic design firms. He studied at the Manipal Institute of Technology and later at Harvard. And he founded MOT, which is an urban design concept planning and execution platform. Naresh, your grandfather was a civil engineer and your father founded Venkatramanan and Associates. How does it feel to inherit a legacy?
Well, it's a big weight on my shoulders, definitely. And yes, it was great to have a father who built half the ladder. I'm very happy he was born before me. But it's also a big responsibility to be able to build on that and to take advantage of the current economic situation that we all see today.
But before the current economic situation, I think you came in at a time, 1969 was your founding year. And by the time you started working, I think it was the mid-70s?
1985, actually.
Oh, 85. And by then, I think Bengaluru was well on its way to becoming the modern city that it now is, with contributions from the Maharajas and the Divans and the British, of course. But you played a very big role in defining Bengaluru as a modern city. You're the one who practically coined that term, which said, this is a tech park, when you designed Infosys. Tell us something about that.
Well, things were not that hyped up till the early 90s. I think, a lot of Bangaloreans, at least recently arrived Bangalore people, think Bangalore is as old as Infosys. Roughly 91, when Infosys burst on the public imagination. And I was lucky enough to be invited by the founders of Infosys to design their first large software campus. They had a smaller building already, but this was designed as a large campus and as an ecosystem, not just a office building. That was a huge difference. And Mr. Murthy himself gave me the seed of that concept. When I asked him, what would he like this campus to reflect? He said, well, he studied in IIT, and you will find a lot of Infosys guys came out of the IITs of India, and those are the guys who stayed back in India. Right? Many of them ran away. And they had a fond memory of growing up in a campus where it was like a big garden in which there were buildings, not the other way around. And we said, all right, why not we use that as a genius loci for designing a new software park itself.
And that's where the term park came from. From a city of parks.
Yeah.
Lal Bagh and Kabad Park and all the others. You now gave us the tech park.
Yeah. It's not a park next to a building. It's a building in a park.
In a park.
Yeah.
And I think that you all sort of established the garden feel of the garden
Absolutely.
city within all the architectural projects you did.
Absolutely. In India, not just in India, many places in the world, there is only 3 letters difference between the word park and parking. And most places you go, you see the backsides of cars and you see parking everywhere. And then you negotiate your way through the cars and then somehow find the entrance. You will never find that in any of my projects. You'll always see a park when you enter, and the parking is somehow magically taken care of.
How wonderful. That's really lovely. What was it like working with Mr. Murthy? I mean, he's iconic for all of us. He's also in many ways a founder of modern Bengaluru, and you were one of the first people he came to. Did
Yeah.
he inspire you in any way?
Yeah, in many ways, I think the entire leadership of Infosys actually, at that time, I think it was a great thing that Bangalore got its first, what do you say, homegrown multinational, if I
Correct.
can call it that. But Mr. Murthy was unusual because he would be involved in the design at every level of it. And not only that, he was also very particular about how it was maintained after that. And I remember having a discussion with him, and he told me that what should be the gold standard for a Infosys maintenance policy. And I told him the toilet in the Oberoi. So, and they actually followed it to the letter. And even if you go today to any Infosys facility, it's as well maintained as a five-star hotel. And that's very important for India. We tend to spend a lot of time building things and keep no budget at all for looking after it, and it falls apart. Buildings are supposed to last 20, 30 years, not fall apart in 4, 5 years.
Where in Bangalore, I mean, that's a completely different subject. Did you also get to work with Sudha Murthy?
Not too much. Much later in life, I was the architect of the National Law School of India, and we did a library in which she had generously donated.
Funded.
But yes, I know Mrs. Murthy also for a long time.
She's quite a wonderful woman,
Yes,
Somehow
yes.
she's never sort of lost touch with her roots.
Yeah.
And every time I meet her, she always tells me, so what's the latest in saris, she
Yeah.
says. Even though she represents on one hand a very modern face of India, I think she also is a traditionalist. She is someone who I think many people identify with as a mother, a sister.
I think the word you're looking for is timeless. And
Very
that's what we try to do.
That's true.
And when when we do architecture, and I learned that from my father, that the building, more than any style or fad that it follows, it must be built so that it reflects a timeless spirit. And you will see that in my father's work. My father was the architect of the Raman Research Institute. It's 50 years ago, the library was built inside the institute. And if you look at it today, it looks as fresh and as contemporary and as modern as it was built even just now. So that's very difficult to pull off as an architect.
Correct. Correct. And that also brings me to another question. I've always wondered why India does not have a defining style of architecture. Even in a small country like Sri Lanka, you see a certain style, where they borrow from the past, but they take it forward into the future. In India, sometimes I walk through the new developments of Delhi and I'm horrified at what's happening, even in Bengaluru to that for that matter. It's all over the place, the architecture. We have no zoning, we have no color coding. Everyone's free to do whatever they want to.
Well, it's a diverse
Why is
country.
that?
In some strange way, I find that liberating. Actually, not to be weighed down by an architectural tradition. But at the same time, I agree with you. The end result can be quite chaotic. But India is too diverse geographically. In India, the food, the cuisine, the people, the clothes, and the attitude changes every 200 kilometers.
That's also
And it's also difficult to find the only two things I think are common to India, all Indians, are cricket and Bollywood. And probably a little bit of, right? That's, other than that, what is really common to all of us? We don't eat the same food, or we don't wear even the same clothes, language. So, and I think that unity in diversity is actually the strength of India. It is not what looks chaos. No, no, to what others seem like chaos, to me looks like opportunity to make it all right.
But sometimes I wonder when the Windsor Manor was built back in the 70s, and it borrowed very heavily from the colonial Raj Bhavan style of architecture. And then a couple of decades later came the Leela,
Yeah.
which borrowed from the Indo-Saracenic
Exactly.
culture. Are these just the two defining architectural styles we have in India?
Well, not really. Many more. Indian architecture is influenced more by context and climate, if you look at the traditional architecture of India. But with the advent of modern technology, with air conditioning and with electricity, and according to me, the greatest advance of civilization till now, plumbing, and and the great Indian invention of the attached toilet. I think what happened was it liberated design from constraint, and people started exploring different styles of architecture. But you'll always find that as long as it's climatically sensible, and not particularly stuck on a particular kind of style. As I said, some buildings are timeless. Some look like they should be so, demolished the moment they're built. There is a huge variety, but you still find a lot of very, very good work in India, and a great amount of, and particularly now with the younger generation, you find that the exploration in what it means to be Indian is really starting to get nuanced and different.
And still being defined.
Yeah.
So, Naresh, you're the third generation of the family business, so to speak. I came from a background where my dad was an Air Force officer, his dad was a planter, so really had nothing to fall back on. But in your case, were you fortunate enough to work with your granddad? He was a civil engineer of great repute. Your dad was an architect. What were the influences that you gained from them?
No, my grandfather used to work in Chennai for another architect, right? And those days there were not so many architects. A lot of civil engineers were also practicing architecture, right? My father came to Bangalore in the 60s and started his firm in 1969. And as a child, I've always seen what architects do as I grew up. But when I actually, it came for me, time for me to choose, I almost became a physicist. I studied science for a couple of years, and then I started understanding that all science is eventually mathematics. And then I didn't like maths so much. And then I was watching my father working on many projects, and I said, why not give this a try? And it came naturally to me, actually. It was meant to happen, but I think it took a little time too. And I'm very glad that, tongue in cheek, but that my father was there before me. And it was very interesting to join a practice which was already established and had set a standard in the city already.
That's quite amazing. And what was it like going to the Manipal Institute of Technology? What took you there?
Well, it was a new architecture department, and as I said, I was studying science. And about halfway during the second year, I decided that this won't work. And other colleges had started, and Manipal had a seat vacant.
I see.
And they said, "Why don't you come and join us?" And they had a very nice faculty in the. It was a new college. Only 3 years ago, it had started the architecture school. MIT itself is much older. And they offered me a seat, and yes, I went and joined it, and it was a great experience.
And when did Harvard happen to
No,
you?
that was much later. About 10 years later, I started realizing that architects know how to design, they don't know anything about business, right? And the practice had become 50 people, and it was becoming difficult for me to understand cash flow and simple things that other finance people take for granted. So there was a great course at Harvard which taught me the fundamentals of financial management, which I really needed at that point.
Did you enjoy the US?
Yeah, I did it partly, a lot of the course was done in India, and I only did a little bit in the United States. That was fun.
So let's get back to Bangalore. We worked together very briefly on a project for Church Street. And I think that was a benchmark project for you too, where the PWD actually handed over an entire street to you. Give me some background on that, Naresh.
Actually, it was the BBMP, and what happened was that they had a item in their budget called fiduciary funds for improving pedestrian areas. And the word fiduciary, many people don't know. It means to hold in trust for a specific purpose. It was a grant.
And the money came from where?
It's a government of India, and it was granted to the BBMP, and they were not using it. And at that time, I have been to Church Street since I was 7 years old. Yeah, forever. Right? I used to go to Kochi's, I used to go to British Library, then I used to run go-karts with that gentleman on Church
The
Street.
first burger joint was on Church Street.
Everything. So Church Street was part of my childhood, growing up. And of course, the famous Ramda pub was right there.
Ramada Pub.
The first pub of
I worked in Church Street at a boutique called April Shah's way
excellent.
back when, and the famous Queen's restaurant was also on Church Street.
By about 2015, 2016, the street had deteriorated very badly. There were about 60, 70 food, drink, and drink establishments. But the business was going, it was broken. And the funniest thing was it was still attracting lots of people. Right? And a huge pedestrian crowd there. So when I saw this budget and it's like connecting the dots, right? People already the tender sure program was running, and Church Street was not part of it, and said, why not make this a pedestrian oriented street? In India, people design streets and roads for that matter from the viewpoint of the motor car.
Correct.
They never look at then the people are somewhere on the edge of it.
But all city development seems to be like that. The
So,
flyover,
yeah, everything.
everything is geared
So,
towards
I wanted
vehicular
to make a
movement.
street. When you travel abroad, you see that. And when you go abroad, you go to a street. So I said Bangalore should get a street where you go to, not through.
Correct.
Right? How do you go to a street where that itself is the destination?
You were not able to stop vehicular movement on the street.
No, initially that was the plan, but there were about what we found out. We did a very detailed survey of everybody on the street. It's quite a big street, right? It's almost a kilometer long. There were 40 people, families living on the street.
Correct.
And also there was a couple of corporate offices like BPL and others who had parking. And it's not fair to say that they can't bring their cars there anymore. So what we did was we kept the street a specific width. The street is a strange street. It's 40 feet wide at the Brigade Road end, and it's 60 feet wide at the KC Das end.
I see.
It's like a little trumpet.
I see.
So what we did was the road itself is only 17 feet wide, and the rest of it became footpath, right? And footpath with also with very strong disabled access design built into it. So as the street moves as you move from Brigade Road to Church Street, the footpath keeps widening, and it becomes pedestrian oriented. And two, a lot of people think the cobblestones is a copy from some Paris or London or something. That was You should ask the fundamental question: why are there cobblestones in modern streets in the first place? I mean, you could have easily put a concrete street or a tar road, right? Cobblestones are a traffic calming device. So when you drive on it, it makes a noise and it also jerks, and you instinctively slow down. So when you make a pedestrian oriented area and you have to have allow vehicles and you put a cobblestone, right, and it automatically the speed of the vehicle slows down. And the distinction is between a street and a road. A street is where people are more important. A road is probably where cars, I mean, throughput is more important, right? And what happens is that when we made the street, when this thing started saying, oh, we have taken cobbles from somewhere else and put it, I think that's where you came in. Yeah. And I put out a notice I think in our groups, saying that, what can we bring of Karnataka and Bangalore's culture into the street itself? And that was a great suggestion from you, using the Kasuti pattern, which is probably the indigenous textile, one of the embroidery pattern embellishment in Karnataka. And we replicated that beautifully with using cobblestones in different colors. Correct. And it's like almost like an Easter egg.
Right.
We call it. Right?
And Kasuti is a geometric embroidery form, so it lent itself very well to that.
And blew it up and made it like that. And I think it still looks great.
Looks great. And I'm glad you managed to make it a one-way at least. No, it used to be a two-way in the old.
It used to very long ago. But then one way, the government agreed to make it one way because otherwise there will be too much conflict all the time. And now what is happening is also the metro station. See, it's an unusual street. It changes character if you noticed every so and so. It's the only street in India with 5 operating bookstores.
Right.
Very rare. It also has public transit directly feeding into the street. Right. It has a variety of food and drink, probably unparalleled in any street. Any city. In the sheer variety. And of course, it is also historically the place where pub culture was started, right? Yes. You remember NASA pub and now also I think it's a great place. And it also has shopping. It has something for everyone. So it's a street to go to, not through.
That's wonderful. So, Naresh, if you were given complete authority to change Bangalore in any way you wanted to, what are the three things that you would do to make that change happen?
I think the most important thing in the city today is accessible and inclusive public spaces. We really lack, uh, compared to the amount of population that we have, and a public space, when I say, it's not just a gated park, it's highly inclusive, open to everyone, and also make sure that there are a lot of urban amenities for that. Second, and not necessarily in that order, but I would fix access to public transit. We can't go on adding, Bangalore has the worst ratio of private vehicles to population in the entire planet.
Mm.
It's 1.3 crore people and 1.3 crore vehicles, 1:1. It's probably the worst ratio in the world. And we have somehow collectively, I'm not saying anybody in particular, failed to invest heavily in public transit, seamless public transit that we are able to move. And I think this public transit doesn't start with putting metros. It doesn't start with even suburban trains. You know what it starts with? What I call number 11, your own 2 feet. And you need footpaths for your feet to walk on. And I really think that we have we have now made a city with focus so much on roads that people are just relegated to the edges, and we don't have footpaths. And we really, with weather like this, we should have, the entire city should have bicycle trails, protected bicycle lanes, as well as great footpaths. And I think walking around instead of going to a gym is better exercise, right?
And St. Mark's Road has managed somehow to.
Due to the Tender Sure program, which is done by a lot of us together and another lot of collaboration together, was I think almost close to 50 kilometers of continuous footpath in the center of the city. It doesn't sound like a lot, but consider there are 14,000 kilometers of roads in Bangalore, and 50 kilometers is not enough, and we should be able to expand that all over the city.
Right.
And we should be able to walk more than anything else. I would really sit and focus on how to make, what people don't understand is what you see on a footpath is only 10% of the problem. Unless what is below the footpath, the drainage, the utilities, and everything is fixed correctly, the footpath will keep getting damaged. And unless you do that right, take Church Street. It's 10 years next year. Right? It's true. Already time has flown. People have forgotten what it looked like. Right? It's 2017. It was almost complete.
Initially, you had some problems with drainage and they kept digging it up and things. Yes.
Everything. But everything is settled now, and it's 10 years now. The road has never been cut, even once. Right? We've had a few maintenance issues. All that now recently has been, even that's been taken care of. Right? They were allowing some by mistake, some very heavy vehicles were allowed in the road, and some of the cobbles got loosened and all that. Now it's again back to normal. The footpaths are perfect. And if you notice very closely, 4 new buildings have come up, but not one building has had the necessity to cut the road. Everything is already pre-thought of in ducts, and what you see of Church Street is only 20%. 80% is the beauty below it. And in India, we tend to ignore that. And what I keep telling people, that India doesn't need an infrastructure solution. We need an infra culture solution.
That's
The
true.
culture
That's
of doing
true.
that itself must
Yes,
change.
yes. But why is it that public-private partnerships do so poorly in Bengaluru? I mean, when the BBMP or the BDA or now the GBA, there seems to be so not very concerned about public opinion. They never take ideas from the general public or from experts. You know, these flyovers are announced and layouts are announced, in a very sort of a random kind of a way. Is nothing can be done to fix that?
Well, I think what the city really lacks is a unifying vision. And we don't have, currently, it's odd to think that Bangalore does not have a master plan for a city of this size.
Why is that?
The master plan expired in 2015, the
We
last one.
outgrew it.
No, it expired in 2015, and it's just been extended by government order ever since for the last 10 years. What is happening is, I think the city is moving too fast and too soon for anybody to get a grip of it. So what's happening is projects are getting announced in isolation. People are not really consulting each other. There are so many agencies running Bangalore, right? Like you yourself reeled off 4 5 names. And then you have the water board, then you have the electricity people, then you have the public transport, the bus people, the metro guys. All of these are government agencies, but there's no single unifying authority. But hopefully, now onwards, once the Greater Bangalore Authority has been formed, now it is in play, the GBA. Now we have a single source of accountability under the Chief Commissioner. Hopefully, things will change. Things had gotten out of hand. Again, I wouldn't pin it on any one particular person or political formation or anything like that. I think it's just too quick. Just think, in 2008, our population was about 6.5, 7 million. Today it is 13 million. Which city? It's almost double.
Doubled. It is
Right? It's
doubled.
almost double the population. And we have not been, the planning systems are not designed to handle a growth like that.
But then, I mean, like the lack of a green belt around Bangalore. Like, look at London. The green belt is bigger than London, which is around the city. And that's helped maintain a certain growth, index over there. We don't seem to have any kind of planning in terms of, they allow our lakes to be built upon. Our Raja Kaluves have gone. Is there nothing we can do to stop that rot?
I wouldn't say everything is gone. Bangalore still has what I would call, at least this summer is becoming a bit of a problem, but I think we still have great weather. That's a great climate. That's about it.
But
To
have you
reach
noticed it's the hottest ever now, so maybe something's changing.
global warming, probably blame it on something else, but not really. No, how would I put it? What would I would really say is that there is a need for all of us to come together and come up with a collective vision for the city in which the people of the city and the government have to work together to do it. But I think the current demands of electoral politics, the 4 5 year window in which political parties have time to plan is not enough. It's just the city is just go too fast, too soon, too much. And then we don't have a system to handle it. And we're all grappling with how to deal with we don't have a precedent to look back upon or draw upon. You cannot just compare it to some foreign city and
True, but surely things like potholes, things that can be fixed properly are never fixed. I mean, they cause people to die, they cause accidents all over the place. There's so many things about Bangalore that sometimes I wonder who's coming up with these shitty ideas. And you really think to yourself that is there nobody who has a checks or a balance or to put your foot down and say, no, it cannot happen this way. Growth has to be controlled. If you're bringing a new layout in, this is the way it's to be done. I live beyond Yelahanka on Durbalapur Road, and suddenly the government, 2 governments ago, decided to build the Shivram Karant layout. Then one government came, the BJP came and cancelled the project. Then the Congress wins the next year again and they bring back the project. So right now we're in turmoil. I don't even have a road that leads to my house that's proper anymore. And you think I've paid my taxes, I've been a contributing member of Bangalore's citizenry, the everything. But there's no payback at all. You just have to fend for yourself. Sometimes, honestly, when you go down certain roads, you feel like you're fighting a war.
I agree. There are definitely, I think we can do, all of us can do a lot better. I think what is happening is that rather than we tend to criticize the government a lot, I agree, when it comes to these things. But I also find that many times that the citizens of Bangalore are not invested in the city. What you're talking about is how do we get civic literacy from the people. I mean, I have been working on multiple projects for the city now, and you find that people are also quite careless. People litter all over the place. They not no sense of responsibility.
Garbage.
You see how people behave on the roads when it comes to traffic. I think it's a bit of a two-way street, Prasad. It's difficult to pin it on only the political uh, leadership of the city or the bureaucratic leadership of the city. I think it's a bit of a shared responsibility, and I think civic literacy has
But
people
look
have
at
to be taught how to
Singapore.
live in.
How did they manage to do it, in this? Well, that's what we should be then, to have a little more punishment going on and punish a few people.
What we are a representative democracy. The moment we vote somebody into power, we think they have to do their job. What we are not is a participative democracy. And when you compare us to, say, other democracies in the Western countries, the people of the city are as engaged with the city even after electing a political leader. Here we tend to elect and forget what we did. We only think that that's somebody else's problem. I think we also have to learn to be participation in the democracy and figure out what we all can do. In India, we do not have respect. What I call, we have something called the tragedy of the commons. We're great at making great homes for ourselves, great places to work. Some of the places, homes I have seen in India, I have not seen outside India. It's I mean, the level of quality and luxuries are beyond imagining, right? All you will do is step out on the road and it goes to minus 20 on a scale of 10. And why is that? Because we think it is somebody else's problem. We don't, as a community, we don't own the common. There is a term for that in literary terms called the tragedy of the commons. And unless we all learn to take collective responsibility for what is not ours, which is outside our private property, that level, poorer countries than India have this sense of ownership. I've seen places in Africa, places in Vietnam, places in other parts of the world, which some of are very well kept. I mean, why go so far? Sri Lanka, remarkably clean because the people own, they're culturally, they own the public space as much as they own private space. In India, somehow we have missed the boat on that as a society itself.
I mean, in Sri Lanka, I'm sitting on the beach and I find this machine coming in to clean the beach. The beaches are spotless. And here we go to Goa and this ocean's throwing back all the waste that we've thrown into it over the past year. It's really shocking.
We have to find a way to influence Indians to think about India, the rest of India as theirs too.
So that section was the tragedy of the commons. With Naresh, it's always a temptation to get him to try and solve every problem that the city faces. But now I'm going to go into the style index that Bangalore always was. You remember Bengaluru in the 70s and 80s? It was like such a stylish city. And we had the clubs, we had the nightclubs, we had the cabaret dancers, we had the bands, we had Bidu Apaya, we had so much going for us. I remember in those days that people from Bombay used to come down to party for weekends in our city. It was such a smart city. And then we had restaurants like Knockout and Prince's, Amar Lulla, who gave us Top Kapi and Blue Fox with the Malhotras. I mean, it was such a swinging city, really. I must say, I enjoyed growing up in this city because it was just the most open society. It was so accepting. We could all be as mad as we wanted. We could go to the only place and do stuff over there. Brigade Road was like a haunt. MG Road, of course, was the arterial sort of road of the city. And because of the army in Bangalore, I think a lot of green space also was kind of well maintained, like it is still today. We've never really lost that. What were your memories of an early Bangalore for you?
Well, I grew up in Upper Palace Orchards, as it's called, Sadashiv Nagar now, near a beautiful lake called the Sankey Lake, and I studied in St. Joseph's school years. I used to come into through Kaban Park almost every day. It was a great place. I mean, I also enjoyed the old city, which is Baswangudi and Shankarpuram and all those areas. They have a different kind of character, and it was unusual to grow up in a city which had very two distinct characters. If you have realized, Bangalore has a sort of invisible dividing line, right? And old Bangaloreans will instinctively know whether you are in the cantonment or you are in the city without having been told. But if you ask them to say where is that line, it's not there, and it pops up here and there. When you Kaban Park is one example of a pop up. And one side is the old city, and
One side is the new city.
and I think it was a great city of gardens and of leisure. And it is a very unusually, it's a cosmopolitan city. You can speak 5 languages even today to an auto driver, okay, and he will answer in that language. And no other city in India has that, And I think a lot of people say, you know, Kannada Gotila, and there is some lot of issues. And but I think what people have to learn to say is Kannada Kalita Idini. And that is more important than don't say Kannada Gotila. I think it's important that if you live here, you should be part of the local culture. And I still remember studying in school and going back at 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the evening after games, and there used to be mist when you ride home. When you come in the morning, also there used to be mist.
We still have a bit of mist where I live,
Where you live,
beyond
but not in the
Yanahanka.
city.
Yes.
And life was, as you said, extraordinarily easygoing. I was rudely plucked out of here in 1980 and sent to study architecture in Manipal, which turned out to be a hot, sweaty, and sultry place. And I never liked that. And Bangalore people are spoiled because of
For weather. I mean, I can't survive in any other city.
come back here as every chance I got, and life was rocking those days. But I suppose that was the tipping point of the city, and I think after that in the 90s, the boom started and things started going rapidly downhill from that point. But I still think, after all that, I still think it's one of the most livable cities in India. So we have to learn to make livability the priority and not speed at which you go through the city the priority. You pointed out there are a lot of projects which is all aimed to increase speed of transit.
Correct.
I think we need a little slower pace of life and learn to savor the city rather than just sort of rush through it all the time.
Take the ring road and not traverse the city. But do you remember how stylish Bangalore was? We had the prettiest girls. All the Miss Indias came from here, so many of them. And we had the warehouse, which had the clothes that the world was wearing. And we were buying t shirts for 5 rupees and jeans for 10 rupees and doing stuff that were being worn currently in Europe. It was quite amazing. And for me,
And also the music scene was extraordinary. Right? We used to, I've heard the Beatles 2 weeks after it was released in London. People used to bring it and used to have.
You know, the HMB house on Brigade Road where Desmond Rice used to work was my go-to. You know, I should somehow collect 7 rupees every week to go and buy a little 45 RPM. It was usually the Beatles or Mary Hopkins or the Carpenters or something like that. My God, those were days that I can never forget. But Bangalore has a certain style till today that has never really been replicated by any other city. Maybe Pune to a certain extent, but nobody else. But Bangalore remains quite unique to me. You know, there's a lot of my friends still want to come to holiday in Bangalore, to visit Bangalore. They feel that it is truly a very special, very international
It has
city.
panache. It has the sense of grace and panache, and and because it's cosmopolitan, it does not have any parochiality at all. Nobody asks the question, where are you from in Bangalore, right? I mean, we all came from somewhere at some point in time, but this question, when you go to another city, that's brought home to you almost on the first day that you're there. And I remember going to other cities into parties, and you feel left out instantly. But we always have had particularly the original inhabitants, the Kannadigas of Bangalore, have always had a very tolerant and welcoming attitude to people who have come into the city right from the 50s, because Bangalore's real scientific population started coming in with the establishment of the public sector in the 50s with BAL and
50s and
HAL
60s.
and all that, and it brought in a lot of what I would call technological. I mean, their children are the ones who created the IT boom.
But even way before that, Jayachamrajendra Vadiyar, his Diwans, the Maharani at that point, they were such wonderful people. I mean, they really cared about the city and they did a lot for the city. I thought that was a forgotten slice of history that we must kind of celebrate again, you know, and bring back everyone that, because a lot of people think that Bangalore is very modern and was created just in the 70s and 80s. Nobody realizes it goes back 100 more years.
No, Bangalore is older as a city than Chennai, than Bombay, or even Calcutta.
Oh, really?
Right, and it's old. And Delhi and Varanasi is probably the oldest city in the world, but only Delhi and Jaipur are older than Bangalore, right? But in 11 years from now, 2037, Bangalore has its 500th birthday. And you asked what can all of us do, right? And as citizens, I think we need to come together and come up with a vision 2037.
Let's start on it. It'll take
Yeah.
that much time to get.
It's 11 years, right? What will Bangalore be on its 500th birthday? What is the party we are going to throw Bangalore on its 500th birthday? And what will it be? Will we all still like to live in it? Right? And 10 years from then is 2047, which is 100 years of Indian independence.
That's true.
So I really think we need a 10-year vision and a 20-year vision for the city.
But with the speed at which we change our political parties does not sort of help that
Probably we
concept
need
a
to
lot.
we need to rethink that compact that citizens have with the political leadership and find a way that there is a meeting ground rather than just opposition. Right now, it's a lot of activism and opposition to whatever happens. So it's not very constructive, the whole dialogue. So once this activism and opposition starts, each party becomes suspicious of each other and they don't trust each other. So we have to build a truth and reconciliation
But you
commission or
know,
something like
Naresh, I
that.
don't know because last year a whole bunch of us were called over to the Vedant Sauda to speak to the chief secretary, and she said that we would like to start a shopping festival in Bangalore like Dubai has, and really create something wonderful that will attract the world, attract the rest of India to come in over here and shop and spend time and well, improve the economy of Bangalore. And at the end of the meeting, she said, "But of course, you do realize that we do not have the money to do this. So you all have to raise the money to do it." At which point, there was a long silence, and then nothing happened. That was the last meeting on the subject. But can people do more? Can the citizens do more? For example, like to celebrate the 500th year of Bangalore. What could we do? Would you have any kind of nascent ideas forming in your mind? And maybe we could make that into a movement.
Yeah, maybe there are a lot of high intellectuals in the city and a lot of professionals in the city and a lot of technocrats in the city. And today, out of the Fortune 500, I think almost all of them have an office in Bangalore. I think, and all the world's biggest companies have their offices in the city, right? Whether it's Boeing or General Electric or whether it is everybody is here. So I think maybe a shared vision that we can all get together in some, we have to create a forum of some sort. And I think it's a great idea to come together and come up with a vision which balances economy, of course, is important, like you said, to keep the wheels turning, and ecology. It's strange to think both words start with eco.
That's right.
Right? And why is it they seem like opposites of each other, right? They shouldn't be. And eco economics and ecology come from the same Greek root, oikos, which means home. Right? That's where the word eco comes from. So we have to think of this as our home and not just a house to live in.
Correct.
And the moment we start thinking of it as our home, a sense of pride will come in all of us. And all these companies have to be brought together in some kind of forum, a public forum which is trusted by everybody, which is a PPP, like you said, but in a very open format kind of thing, and contribute not just from a infrastructure point of view, but also from a cultural point of view, how to make this city a beacon for the rest of India in the future. I don't think we have lost it yet. I think there's still time, but I
I
think
think
time
we're
is
still a
running out.
beacon very much in many ways.
Yeah,
We
Bangalore
are
is where
definitely a
everything starts in
beacon.
India, right? Whether it's the Aadhaar or whether it is the national education policy, or I'm saying this recent things, right? Whether it's software exports or whatever it is, Bangalore has been the pioneer of new ideas in this whole country.
Absolutely.
And can we be the pioneer of a new idea of a city itself is a question that only time will tell. And I think there is enough traction in the city that a lot of people involved who would like to make a difference from all walks of life. And I think we can put together, and I said, can we make a vision which is inclusive, which is intelligent, and which is also about everybody in the city coming together to contribute whatever they can. Already you see things like Bangalore Habba, you see things like institutions popping up everywhere, cultural institutions. How can you make this into a tidal wave of how to make a city livable for the next generation.
Definitely, definitely. So, Naresh, tell me, how important is style in architecture? In my world of fashion, style is everything. So, in architecture, how would you define style?
I think style, more important, is communication. And I think architecture and fashion share a lot, whether it's proportion or whether it's texture or it's structure or rhythm, and most importantly, restraint. Right? And I think real fashion is, I would always look at, there's only one word which I always look at it when I look at fashion, and that is great fit. If it doesn't work as a fit on somebody, and the buildings are the same, if it doesn't fit in an environment, it looks out of place. And I think fashion and architecture share that. I always think, fashion, architecture, taste. I think all these three things go together, and a good building enhances your mood, as does good clothing, right? And also makes you feel different and makes you feel more confident, or even sometimes good architecture and good fashion makes you feel even hopeful of a great future.
It must elevate, it must make you feel that you're going beyond just an ordinary life into something special. What about color? Is it important in architecture for you the way we have color forecasts in fashion? Of course, in interior design also, there is a certain amount of forecasting. But in terms of architecture, in many countries, they have, like in Muscat, for example, there's a color code. You have to paint the buildings a certain color. You're not allowed to go away from that. But somehow it does make it look very pleasant and beautiful and controlled, beyond the mishmash of what Indian urban spaces can be. What is it about India that prevents us from making that leap into the future, into creating something that is truly modern and beautiful?
Prasad, I mean, a lot of people in India, I think, I mean, in terms of per cap, we may be a $4.5 trillion economy, but our average national income is only $2,500 per person still. It'll take a little more time for India to reach a level of sophistication. I think we are going through an evolving, what we call the evolving economy phase, where we are trying to get to a point. And your earlier point about why do urban environments still lack the quality that you see outside is because of system failure. Too many agencies, they have not really built a administrative or a design sense for the city itself. It's starting to change in pockets of India here and there. You find change, but for it to become a ballooning thing across the country will take some more time. It won't, and still we're still grappling with fundamental issues of survival in many places in India. So I agree that there is a, once you go outside India and see that why can't we be like this? We will be, but probably not in your and my lifetime.
That's true. Anyway, we'll wish the coming generations all the very best. And while on the subject of style, how would you define your personal style?
That's a hard one, but I'm a I'm usually much more casual. I'm not a very formal kind of person. But for me, as I said, the most important thing in a something that I wear, or particularly what I choose to wear, is great fit. If that fit is not right, I don't care who the designer is or what the color is. And the second, I think a bit of restraint. I don't want to be announcing my presence when I enter somewhere. It should be more subtle than that. And lastly, good design is that when you realize after 3 hours, after wearing a garment, that it's great. And good design is many times invisible,
That's true.
right? And you realize it only and it grows on you. And for me, that's more important than just subscribing to what is the fashion of the fad of the day, I would say.
What about fabric? I mean, we come from a country, we are great in fabric, especially when it comes to the heritage fabrics of India, the cotton that we first grew, the khadi that we weave so beautifully, all the heritage handlooms of the country. India really has a luxury of choice when it comes to fabrics. But I'm not sure whether we use it enough because designers find it easier to buy imported Chinese fabrics because they're so cheap and It looks like silk, but it's not really silk. And then to come to Karnataka and chase the silk manufacturers and try and get enough quantity to scale their design becomes very difficult. But in many ways, are you involved in interiors also? Do you do quite a bit of it? And I feel that what we have in India, the heavily slubbed khadis, make great upholstery fabrics. We have so much, but there isn't enough R&D happening in that. We need designers like you to come in and sit with the weavers and say, create a fabric that is dense enough to take 2,000 seatings every month and will not fall apart, or for a restaurant or a high traffic area. I'd love to see that happen in the interior space also.
Absolutely, you're right, and it is happening when the client is discerning. Many times, what happens is that the client does not have budgets, and when you say this, particularly when you have to promote craft as a fundamental story in the whole interior space, it definitely is not going to be the same cost as a some mass-produced Chinese import, right? And to be able, and once the client is discerning, you notice that the quality of what they use, whether it's linens or whether it's crisp cottons or whether it's using specialized khadi upholstery fabrics, is catching on in the city, but not at the pace at which we're able to. It's very, very difficult to match the prices of what you can get. And people in India are in a huge hurry at this point. This country is very impatient, it's very ambitious, and if they want, and here with the new generation of people who have created wealth, for them, instant gratification takes too long. And they want everything day before yesterday. So that's not going to really work with a culture like this. So to be able to balance it, so what we do is we tend to, wherever we can, at least in the CXO areas where of large offices, we ensure that this kind of attention to detail is put there, if not for the entire space. I wish we could do the entire space like that. But demands of time, and time doesn't allow you to, as well as budget. So, but definitely we use a lot of the high quality material from India in particularly produced by craftspeople in a lot of work that we do. And it is starting to give us great feedback because people immediately realize it's more climatically suitable. It also lasts much longer. It also looks much better. And you also have brownie points for having kept a craft and a craftsman alive. So it's very important to do that too, to create a sustainable livelihood for people who are not directly affected by you.
And now India is growing up and they're wanting a better product. For example, I've been working on creating that perfect shirt, something that can travel and be taken out of your suitcase and be worn without ironing it. Never to have to wait for housekeeping to come and disappear with the shirt for 3 hours. And.
Maybe then a hybrid approach might work, no? A little bit of modern technology with the
Definitely,
traditional basic.
definitely. I mean, actually, I find khadi a very easy fabric to work with. I have a khadi suit that never needs ironing. I can pack it and take it anywhere with me, take it out, shake it, and wear it. It is so easy. But it's difficult to get people to understand that it may be a little more difficult to maintain in terms of it needs very careful hand washing. You can't throw it into the machine. But like most beautiful things, why would you throw it into a machine when you have something beautiful? I like the shirt you're wearing, the denim, and the color suits your coloring very well. When you go shopping, do you look for a certain something? Do you look for a certain finish, a certain quality, a certain feeling of luxury? What ticks your boxes?
Well, I think for me, most of the time it's serendipity. And I, when I want something, it somehow I find it, and I spend some amount of time. I'm looking for clothes all the time, but some of it calls me when I go to places saying this will work, that won't work. And as I said, if the way I choose clothes is, as I said, I don't like to stand out too much, or I'm a bit of a conservative person when it comes to trying out new clothes. But at the same time, also the quality of the texture of the fabric, the quality of its fall, how it looks, all those are
The way
important.
it feels against your skin.
Skin is very
I
important.
mean, honestly, India has something fantastic. A vegetable dyeing, for example, actually comes from medicine. It was actually invented to treat skin disease, to prevent skin irritation. Till today, you can get turmeric dyed fabrics that are very, very good to wear for your skin and are recommended to given to people with sensitive skin or who have a skin disorder. And this has somehow never been telescoped into. But I think the day will come, like you said,
Well, you're wearing an Indian shirt right now, no? A
Yes, there's an
seersucker.
Aldeno too. It's a seersucker. And like one of the Aldeno girls was telling me, the word comes from sheer and shakkar. And that's how more Indian can you get from that. But the great thing about seersucker is that because of the kind of bumps on the fabric, it never sits flat against your skin. So it always allows for air circulation within your body. And in India, trust me, we need a lot of air circulation. It's something that really, I think, defines what we wear, the climate over here. But on that note, I think that we've had a great conversation, Naresh. Thank you so much for being part of this because the Aldino series of webcasts is something that I'm personally invested in. And I want to bring together the best of Bangalore to create a historical perspective. And maybe 50 years from now, somebody will watch our podcast and say, that's how it was, and that's what Bangalore was. So
And
that's the
I,
point of the whole thing.
I wish you best of luck in also creating the ultimate perfect Indian shirt.
Thank you, Naresh. It's been a wonderful experience. The very first Aldino podcast with Naresh V. Narasimhan. And I'll be back with more. And thank you for watching.